Welcome to Under the Silence. I'm Bianca. This podcast is a space where the quiet truths rise, in the body, in the heart, and in the breath between what's felt and what's said. Over the last 4 episodes, Chewing on the Truth, When the Body Says No, Reparenting the Self and the Dance of Life, we've explored the terrain of gut instinct, emotional safety, nervous system healing, and how we move through the polarities of life. Each conversation has brought us closer to the edge of what we know and deeper into what we feel. Today we continue the journey. We enter the space between, the place where psychology meets embodiment, where healing isn't one path or the other, but the dance in between. It is here where we discover the grey. Let's begin. Earlier this year, I had the privilege of being interviewed by psychologist and hypnotherapist James Hands. He's featuring my work in his up-and-coming book, Trauma Survivor to Soul Warrior, Reconnect with Your True Self, a title that already speaks volumes about the journey so many of us walk. In our conversation, we explored emotional release bodywork, a practice rooted in psychosomatics that has become the foundation of my work. It's not just a technique, it's a way of meeting the body in its language, breath, voice, sound, movement, stillness, all doorways, all access points to what the mind often cannot reach. And in that dialogue with James, some of my words became part of his written reflection, woven into his chapter on body-based healing. He quoted me, "While much of psychology is brilliant, the release has to move through the chemistry and go to that physical level. That's where it's anchored and reinforced deep within the body. And also, trauma recovery has to include work on the physical because it is the base of everything that's here. Because trauma doesn't live in the mind alone, it lives in the body, in breathing patterns, in the rigidity of the spine, in the stomach that won't soften, in the voice that trembles or disappears altogether. We don't override that, we meet it. When I work with someone, I don't push, I don't force the shift, I sit with them in their rhythm, I listen, I feel, and I ask, show me where you're out of balance, show me what you need from me. This isn't a linear process. It's not about fixing. It's about deep trust and allowing the body to lead. Don't be afraid of the symptom or the pain that's coming to the surface. Be with it as equally as the pleasure, the joy, or the unraveling. Sometimes the pain says, I've been feeling this for so long and no one ever saw me here. That is the moment where something shifts. When what is hidden is held. When what was tight begins to move, when the nervous system exhales, not because we've fixed anything, but because we finally stopped running from it. There is life within our body that wants to be effervescent. It wants to move. It wants to actualize itself. It wants to feed and nourish us. It's more than the function of the breath, more than the flow of the circulatory system. Every part of us wants to be fully alive. The space in between. As James and I spoke, I felt something deeply familiar. I've always existed in between. I'm not a registered psychologist. I don't practice within the conventional mental health system. But I also don't fully belong to the spiritual or esoteric world either. I walk in the grey, the place between psychology and energy, between logic and feeling, between scientific grounding and embodied intuition. And over time, I've realized I'm not alone here. So many of us live in that grey, especially those on a healing path. This is the space where nuance lives, where paradox is allowed, where we can hold two truths, that regulation matters and so does surrender, that evidence helps but so does silence, that therapy has its limits, and that the body often knows more than our words ever will. It is in this between that I've worked with clients who have seen psychologists for years, clients who found insight but needed to feel again. That's when the nervous system becomes the next frontier. That's when the breath becomes the teacher and the tissue becomes the storyteller. So when James chose to include my words and not just include them but honour them, it reminded me of something important. This grey space, it's not a problem to solve. It's a bridge, a place of integration, and maybe the place where soul comes home. A new language of healing. Healing isn't something we do with a checklist. It arrives in shudders, in stillness, in the tiny holy moment when the breath finally drops into the belly. It doesn't look like progress on paper. It feels like presence in the body. This is a new language, or perhaps an ancient one. It speaks in fascia, in gut, in sensation. It whispers through tears, shakes through the spine, and pulses through fingertips. The body says, "I've been holding this," and your presence replies, "You're safe to let it go." That's when the shift happens, not because we forced it, but because we listened long enough for something true to rise. I have known James for over 10 years now, and at the beginning, James was a client of mine because in his work, it's important for him to experience a practitioner or emotional release bodywork for himself before he recommends it to somebody else. So James was seeing me for many, many years. And then years later, he asks me to contribute to his book. So it's such an honor. Thank you for being here, for walking into the grey with me, and for honoring what your body might be carrying, remembering, or ready to release. If something moved in you during this episode, let it move. There's no perfect way to heal. There's only your way, and that is enough. You can explore more of my work at biancamershinger.com or visit psychosomaticsandemotionalanatomy.com, where I co-facilitate practitioner training, retreats, and personal healing immersions in psychosomatic therapy and emotional release bodywork. To learn more about James Hands and his up-and-coming book, Trauma Survivor to Soul Warrior, visit awakentherapy.com.au. Until next time, move gently, choose with care, and honour the rhythm of your body and soul. Ciao for now.